I'm Sam Molig, and this is the story of my year of transition.
Come on, Max.
15-year-old Sam Molig is a happy, confident, athletic teenager. He loves to serve, play video games, and compete in gymnastics. He's even set high goals for his future.
I want to be an Olympian.
Sam is used to exceeding expectations.
Sam was born 13 weeks premature to a homeless alcoholic. He was 2 pounds at birth. He had, at 2 days old, he had a grade 3 interventricular hemorrhage, which usually results in cerebral palsy. And the neonatologist told us they didn't think he would ever walk or talk.
Kathy and Ron Molig already had a daughter, and they wanted another child, but they were unable to add to their family. Kathy had 5 miscarriages in over 4 years, so despite Sam's health problems, they decided to adopt Sam, and they're glad they did.
Now he's a gymnast and a 3rd-degree black belt, so I guess that neonatologist kind of called that one a little wrong.
From the moment Sam came into the world, he's had to overcome a number of challenges.
When puberty hit, the depression and the anxiety, and it all started.
Sam was born a girl, and at the age of 9, when his breast began to develop, he felt trapped in the wrong body. He started having thoughts of suicide.
I thought God had made a mistake when I was born. This wasn't who I was. I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. I thought I was being punished. I thought I did something wrong.
His suicidal thoughts eased when counselors and doctors concluded Sam was experiencing gender dysphoria.
Gender dysphoria is the distress that can arise for folks if there is a discrepancy between their assigned sex at birth and their experience of gender.
Knowing what was causing Sam to be depressed brought some relief.
We were just, thank God there's an answer to the darkness and we might get Sam back.
And so on April 6th, 2012, the Moligs came together and celebrated Sam's boy birthday.
It symbolizes when we switched my pronouns from female pronouns to male pronouns, and we never went back. And so that basically technically represents the day I transitioned, and I got to start living as me.
Sam had a hormone blocker implanted in his left bicep to slow the growth of female features. 2 years ago, he started taking testosterone shots. Last year, the entire family piled into a van and drove north to the Krieger Institute for Plastic Surgery in Thousand Oaks. Nearly 3 months before his 15th birthday, Sam had his breasts removed.
Sam? Hi, how are you? We're all done with your surgery. You did great. Everything went wonderful.
Doctors Gil and Zoll Krieger have averaged 100 of these type of surgeries a year, each costing $6,000 to $9,000. These surgeons say they work closely with therapists, doctors, and patients' families before performing these surgeries. Still, they know there are people who say it's irresponsible for a doctor or a parent to allow a young child to undergo life-altering surgery at such an age. However, these surgeons reject the notion that these are cosmetic operations. They say these are functional reconstructive surgeries.
Take a young boy with breasts who was born a boy, who's always been a boy, but somehow he has a tumor or some other condition that causes him to grow breasts. Everything that he would have to go through with the breasts, well, really this is no different. This is someone who was born as a girl, but who has always felt that they were a boy and now has been living for years as a boy and now has this abnormality with their body, and going through life with a tremendous abnormality and being very different is very difficult.
The problem is that people who say, isn't that too young, they're thinking, Sam is a girl, and how can you remove this body part on this young girl? But that's not what's happening. Sam is a boy who has breasts. Sam needs a male chest in order to walk in the world authentically.
There you go.
Right. Sam's parents say they fought insurance companies for many months to get Sam's surgery approved. But they say it was well worth it, knowing Sam can now be himself.
The only fear I had for the surgery was that it was going to be postponed or be canceled. Other than that, it was let's put me under anesthesia and let's go. It was everything I ever wanted.
6 weeks after having chest surgery, Sam celebrated by taking off his shirt and jumping in the pool.
It was amazing. Best feeling in my life.
You still smell like a boy, though.
That's the point. I'm gonna be telling you that for years.
Sam's older sister Jack has been by Sam's side every step of his journey. She says she's also been impacted by his transition.
There's definitely a lot of people and relationships that I wouldn't have had or wouldn't have now with people, that are in the trans community or the LGBT community. If it weren't for Sam, I wouldn't be connected to them. That's something I'm really happy about.
Sam hasn't decided whether he'll have other gender reassignment surgeries. His parents say his confidence has increased greatly since the surgery.
I am grateful that I was born the way I was. There are times when I wish that I wasn't, but I look back on it and just realize that I don't think I would be the type of person that I would be if I hadn't been through my experience.
I just think that his life is going to be filled with allowing other people to experience his compassion and acceptance.
It's like the world's your stage, well, the curtain's raised and you're on stage and no longer hiding behind the curtain. So he can do whatever he wants to do, be whatever he wants to be, and do it from his authentic self.
It's important to tell my story to the world, get people educated. We walk down the street, we go to work, we go to school just like everybody else. And that's really all, that's how we want to be treated. We're just like everybody else.
Just feet along the border fence in Otay Mesa is what remains of a drug smuggling tunnel 90 feet below the surface. Officials say this tunnel found in 2009 is one of the more sophisticated tunnels. It is 6 feet high, 4 feet wide, and ran 762 feet long. It had electricity, ventilation, and even a rail system. Unfortunately for the drug smugglers, they never got a chance to use it. U.S. Border Patrol officers discovered the tunnel before it was completed.
What made this one kind of rather unique in there is that its entrance point was underneath a bathroom floor that physically lowered to allow access into the tunnel.
More than 75 cross-border tunnels have been found in the last 5 years, most of them in California and Arizona. It can cost upwards of $1 million to build a tunnel like this. So why go through all that trouble? Well, officials say with just one use, drug smugglers can recoup their costs. Recently, federal authorities discovered this tunnel in Otay Mesa, believed to be one of the longest drug tunnels found along the California-Mexico border. This zigzagging tunnel is estimated to be almost as long as 9 football fields.
From there came the takedown of more than 14,000 pounds of marijuana and more than 2,000 pounds of cocaine, one of the largest seizures that we've seen in the San Diego sector.
U.S. authorities believe drug smugglers are getting more and more desperate, and they appear to be changing their tactics. This tunnel was only 3 feet in diameter.
The tunnels that we're seeing now, as of recent, are getting smaller and smaller. They're realizing now that the bigger you dig these tunnels, the longer it takes, the more costly it becomes.
Still, drug smugglers don't seem to be giving up.
They have a business model. They're going to build their tunnel. They're going to figure out better ways to do it, better ways to hide it, and it's just we have to keep up with them.
To do that, members of the Border Patrol, Customs and Border Protection, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Drug Enforcement Administration communicate daily. They are part of the San Diego Tunnel Task Force, which officials say became extremely effective about 6 to 8 years ago.
But we're going to use every investigative method we're aware of, to include technology and everything else, everything at our disposal to detect these things.
And that includes working closely with Mexican authorities.
The volume of contraband moving in this area of the world is very, very high. And so not only do U.S. law enforcement agencies have their hands full receiving it, but the Mexican authorities are quite busy trying to affect the supply.
Once the task force completes its investigation, they fill the tunnels with concrete on the U.S. side of the border. Except for the tunnel we first showed you, it's now being used for training. In Otay Mesa, I'm Luis Cruz reporting for the San Diego Union-Tribune. Jimmy Benitez lived in Southern California for 15 years, until he was recently deported. He now lives in the impoverished community of Los Laureles in Tijuana. Jimmy Benitez lives in a drainage pipe just feet from the U.S. border. This is his home and some of his belongings. This is where he sleeps. He also has an angel figurine and a small guitar he likes to play to pass the time. It's very different from the life he had in the U.S. Benitez says he used to make up to $300 a week working for various companies in their shipping and receiving departments. Now he collects bottles and cans, and he says he's lucky if he makes a couple of dollars a day.
Voy a juntar botes. Me encuentro unas cositas buenas y las vendo. Y ya saco para lo que quiere uno, cigarritos o así cosas.
The 59-year-old says he's been living here for a year. He found his current home when he was trying to illegally cross back into the U.S.
Fueron sensores, ya no se cruza muy fácil.
In the first 6 months of this year, 264,185 people have been apprehended somewhere along the U.S. border. 49.6% of them were from Mexico, according to data from the U.S. Border Patrol. This fortified fence and increased patrolling may have trimmed the tide of unauthorized immigrants into the United States. But sensors and cameras can't stop the trash and contaminated waters from pumping through the pipes in Benitez's front yard and flowing into the Tijuana River estuary. And despite the awful stench, Benitez says he likes living here because no one bothers him.
Está tranquilo todo.
Still, Benitez says he'd like to return to the U.S. one day to see his 18-year-old daughter, who's a college student in Arizona. This dirt lot in the back of the Terrace Park Cemetery, 125 miles east of San Diego in the city of Holtville, is the final resting place for hundreds of unidentified migrants and others whose families could not afford to bury them. There are only a handful of other places like it in the United States. This pauper cemetery opened shortly after the establishment of Operation Gatekeeper in 1994, which led to the construction of more fencing and expansion of the border wall along San Diego. The stiffer enforcement in San Diego caused migrants to head eastward into harsh desert and mountains. Many of these migrants died, and the annual death toll shot up. In 1998, just 3 years after the cemetery began burying unidentified migrants and indigents, 90 deaths were recorded in the El Centro sector. That was far higher than in the years before Operation Gatekeeper.
And these are people that crossed through the Imperial Valley Desert or through the mountains or tried to come across the All-American Canal, and they died on their journey. And when they were found with no identification.
The identities of many of those buried here remain unknown. The names John Doe and Jane Doe appear on many of the gravesites here. Just a brick marks their presence.
It's a sad situation that this is how a portion of humanity is treated in their final resting place.
The cemetery and the few others nationwide are an extreme aspect of the ongoing clash over how to deal with unauthorized immigrants. Pro-immigrant groups say the U.S. should welcome people fleeing conflicts in other countries. But critics argue unauthorized immigrants should not be allowed to come to the U.S. because they take resources from Americans and legal immigrants. Cemetery officials stopped burying unidentified people here in 2009. Migrants found dead in the desert are now cremated and their ashes scattered at sea. So far this year, 5 of the 8 John or Jane Does that have been found have been unauthorized immigrants.